Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and I'm here with...
I think, yes, Doug Lawrence, yes.
Hi, Doug. We're here to host this show, Stories of Hope, Inspiration, and Overcoming Adversity. And our topic today is My Motivation Came from Unlikely Places. Doug, you are an international certified mentor. You're an international award-winning, best-selling author. Have you ever had times in your life when you needed motivation, given all the things that you've accomplished and all the people whom you've helped?
I can think of a couple right off the top, where one of the big ones that jumps out for me is my motivation to pursue a career in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. That I didn't see myself. Actually, I had started out where I was pursuing I was going to pursue a career in working in a radio station as a disc jockey. And I went through a whole bunch of stuff around that. And that's a whole nother story. But one of the things that altered or changed that course was when I was growing up, we lived on a farm, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, when they were doing their patrols out into the countryside, and that would always stop at our house, and usually around mealtime, someone would throw another potato in the pot, and they would stick around for supper, and then they take off and go on their patrols. But on this one particular time, they came mid-afternoon or whatever it was, and one of the police officers had said to me, have you ever fired a handgun before? And I went, no. And he said, well, do you have a place we can go to target practice? And I went, well, I can go where, I usually go with my 22 rifle and practice, shooting at cans and stuff in this one spot. And he said, well, let's go. He said, show me where that is. So we went target practicing with his revolver, and that was there was something about that it made me decide that was the path I wanted to go. Not that I was a gun fanatic or anything like that, but it was one of those things that him taking me under his wing and going and showing me, teaching me how to fire the gun, and then explaining that it had to be kept clean and all that sort of stuff. That was the motivation that I needed to keep pushing me in the direction of maybe being a radio announcer wasn't quite as exciting as what this police gig was going to be. And so that was the motivation that I needed in order to be able to move forward with what eventually became a 25-year career. And I ended up retiring at the rank of a staff sergeant, which would be what you would consider at the senior level of a non-commissioned officer. So it was something I was proud of in any event. How about you?
That's such a fascinating story. They're so different. The two tracks that you could have taken, and yet here you are as a TV show host, a radio show host. So it's not the same thing as DJing, but maybe you came full circle and got what you wanted all the way around.
It's hard, it's hard to say. I can remember, gosh, with the radio announcing, I used to go on weekends. I mean, we lived, it was an hour drive from the farm to the radio station. And I used to do that every weekend. I'd do a promo tape where I did as though I had my own radio show and stuff like that. And I left the promo tape on the I can still see it. It's on the door sill of the general manager of the radio station. I would leave that. And so then the next weekend I'd come up, he'd have all these notes scribbled out for me, to the things that he wanted me to try, things he wanted me to not try. And it was, gosh, it was, that was the motivation, I guess, that I needed to, number one, to start me down that path. And then the realization that, whoa, stop, just wait, this isn't your calling.
So interesting. How do you feel looking back on it? Are you glad you made the decision you made?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I would have to say that I would change probably one or two things, one of which is I would have stayed longer in the police force. So I would have stayed beyond the 25 years. I would have probably gone to 35 and then, retired at that stage. But, and then, if I flip the table on its end and I look at the radio announcing part, there were different pathways I could have explored with that would have, resulted in something different. And that may have been what I needed to get me going in a different direction.
Doug, once you're out of the police force, can you go back in? Like if you gave them a call and said, hey, I've been thinking about it, I want to come back?
Yeah, you could. A lot of retired police officers get involved in similar professions after they're done their official career. I retired early. I went at 25 and I could have stayed till 35. And there's some people have stayed beyond that. At 25, I had recognized that it was time for me to go. And there were a lot of variables that contributed to that decision. So I that would be the only decision I would maybe change or alter a little bit. Was I think it would have been interesting to play it out to see what would happen if I would have stayed, say, 30 or 35. It would be really quite interesting.
Do you ever think about it now about going back?
No.
Closed book.
It's a chapter or more. It's probably half a book of, excuse me. It's half a book of little mini chapters that are actually quite interesting when I start to kind of peel things back and take a look. There was lots of things that happened that have, when I think about it, I would never have written a couple books if I would have stayed in the police force, because the thought would never have crossed my mind. I would never have done any of that. I would never be doing what I'm doing today. I definitely could say with all certainty that if I would have pursued the radio announcing pathway, this great chance that this may have materialized into that as well. So, when we all take a look at our life and our life decisions that we've made, it's interesting to look and sort of play things out in your mind as to, well, if I would have done this could have been the outcome. Or if I would have done this could have been the outcome. And then and that's when you sort of go like, oh my goodness, maybe I made the wrong choice. Maybe I should have gone in that way instead of this way.
It's really interesting. And of course, if we start asking what if, then we can't go back. We can only move forward. And if we're called to go back, then I guess that's a different story. But I haven't found any reason to go backwards so far.
No, me either. What I'm doing now is closer to my calling. So, and my calling is to be a healer. And we talk about that on some of the other shows, the going through the past life regression and that. And each one of my lives that I got to experience, I was a healer in each one of those. And so that that may not have happened if I would have pursued, say, the radio announcing pathway, or if I would have stayed in the police force. I was helping people, yes, but maybe not to the extent that I am today, where my reach is international, and as a result of that, I'm walking beside a lot of different individuals, all with different challenges and problems to deal with.
Well, we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're on the path that you're on. So thank you for that.
No, thank you.
I have a couple things that come to mind for me in terms of motivation coming from unlikely places. The first is, and I'm going to convolute the story somewhat. So I had an opportunity to, I don't want to say audition because that's not the right word, but to be considered for a television show on a major mainstream channel. And of course, I had to pay for this opportunity, tens of thousands of dollars. And I went to New York and I did what it is I needed to do. And I was told the next day, which was a Sunday actually, that they loved me and we were going to be starting right away. And my picture was going to be on Times Square and a billboard and all these things. And they just needed a little more money. So long story short, I gave them the additional money and they just disappeared. They just disappeared. And the business didn't disappear, but the people I was dealing with disappeared and no one answered the phone at this place. So as it turned out, I debated on getting an attorney, but I'm not someone who likes lawsuits. I don't want to get involved in all of that negative energy. So I just kept calling and I blocked my number. And finally they answered. And when I got somebody on the phone, they claimed they didn't know what was going on. And nobody was around. Everyone was out to lunch. They were always out to lunch. And I thought, yeah, they really are out to lunch. But anyway, the motivation that came for me was that this is a challenge. Okay, they have my money. I've got to get past that. What am I going to do to turn this around? So I gave this person on the phone, it was just the person answering the phone. I gave them a proposal and I gave them a timeline and I gave them an ultimatum. And lo and behold, it came to fruition. And as a result of that, I ended up having numerous shows on the radio, not on television. And from there, I ended up moving over to here. So it cost me a lot of money, but I feel like I never thought that would happen. And the money itself was money I have from my retirement account. So it's money that I had worked hard for. And at the same time, had that not happened, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I had just succumbed to it, or if I just, let's say I hired an attorney, got caught up in a lawsuit. So that was the first story. The second story is I've always done what I was supposed to do and follow the rules. So I'll give you a quick example. If there's a sidewalk, but you could cut through the lawn to get to somebody's, and I'm on the sidewalk. I do what it is I'm supposed to do. I follow the rules. And since I started this platform, I've either interviewed or encountered a number of people who have taken a road less traveled in terms of they're not on the sidewalk. They're actually standing in the middle of the street holding up traffic. So I found that even though people have had a different path than I have, and the path could be that they were in prison, that they were homeless, they were drug addicts, whatever it was, I'm not labeling, I'm just saying that a different experience. I've actually learned quite a bit that I was able to use in terms of learning how to interview people. So without judging someone for the road that they've traveled or the things that they've done, I was able to get to see who that person truly was inside. If you take away all those labels and you just get to the core of who they are. And I feel like that's helped make me a better interviewer.
Most definitely. And when you mentioned, sort of peeling back the covers and stuff like that, and not wanting to get hung up in titles and all sorts of things, I went through the same thing with the police force. Was there were a lot of my colleagues that always referred to themselves by whatever rank they held. And I remember I always answered the telephone, good afternoon, Doug Lawrence speaking. How can I help you? And never once did I make reference to the rank that I had. And for me, it brought me closer to the individuals that I was talking to. It didn't put a wall between us or anything like that, especially in a paramilitary organization where, rank was important to some folks. And, it wasn't for me at all. So I hear what you're saying.
Thanks for sharing that, Doug. You bring up a topic that I've always wondered. I think I've shared before. I love Law and Order, especially Law and Order SVU. I think the whole process, and of course the acting, is amazing. But what I wondered is, when you have the opportunity as a police officer to interact with so many people on a regular basis, and it's usually people committing crimes or in the throes of about to commit the crime, how do you separate yourself in terms of showing up as the officer as opposed to the man, Doug? And maybe Doug has some type of I'll give you an example. Let's say you are in the process of you show up at a robbery or something, and maybe you had somebody in your life who was robbed. How do you take away whatever the personal experiences or thoughts that you might have and show up in that role to do a job?
A large part of what you end up doing is it's almost like compartmentalizing things, but you have a inner circle that you socialize and stuff with, and everything outside of that inner circle is professional. So it's easier to break things down that way. And it also drives your own personal behaviors as well, so that I know that I can be myself in your presence, but in the person standing beside you, it may not be quite so easy for me to do so, because they haven't earned my trust, is probably the best way to describe it. And so as a result of that, we end up with, me not sharing a lot of what's going on. And, that's why in smaller communities, which I did a lot of policing in, it was the like-minded professionals in the community, the nurses, the teachers, that you were able to build relationships with. But anyone else, you kept it at an arm's distance, but you treated with professional courtesy.
Would you say, as our topic is my motivation came from unlikely places, were you ever appreciative for something you learned from someone whom you arrested?
Probably. I would have to say I was the sort of person that's a good question, because I'm just trying to, I'm thinking my way through it. And typically not so much from somebody I have arrested. The only thing that I would say is what I have learned by, if I'm arresting somebody, say in a small community, and that is, I got to understand what the impact that arresting somebody I got to experience what that was about, what that did to them, and what it did to their family, and what it did to the community. And that would be sort of, like I remember, and we were up in the Central Arctic, and it used to go in cycles. That was sort of the thing, is that a lot of people committed crimes in late fall, early winter, because then they knew they had a good chance of being shipped out of the community to the bigger center, and the food was always better at the correctional facility than what it was, in the little jailhouse that we had for keeping people who committed crimes. So it was a cycle that they would go through and do that. So I would have to say that for them, their motivation came from the environment. For us, for me, my motivation in that particular situation was, are there different opportunities or ways for me to provide not a sentence and not punishment, because that sort of sounds harsh, but for lack of a better choice of words, that's probably what I'll use, is the aspect of identifying different ways to provide punishment in that. So we would have any of them that committed crimes within the community, if this was their sort of their first go around, we would do what we could to get them, to be able to stay in the community and serve their time in the community, versus having to ship them out and to a larger center where, they would have a better place to stay, but at the same time, they also would potentially could learn some not so pleasant behaviors while they were out of the community.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you for telling us about that. I'm wondering if we stay on the topic based on the work that you did. I was in the motivation industry through meetings and events, employee recognition, sales incentives. And what I'd like to have us talk about is there motivation through negative behavior? So in other words, let's say I came to you and I said, "You're no good at pulling weeds." I'm just giving an example. "You're no good at pulling weeds." You might be like, "Well, I'll show her. I can go into the garden and pull those weeds." Is negative motivation a potential place where we can find value?
Well, the scenario that you actually presented was a great example of reverse psychology of, of saying, "You're no good at pulling weeds," and you turning around and saying, "I'll show you, I'll go pull the weeds." And so the ultimate goal was to get the weeds pulled by somebody.
Not me, by the way, Doug. It's not happening.
Well, and me either. So for any of our listeners and viewers that are out there, if you like to pull weeds, please send your resume to us, and we'll see what we can do. But I see that as, how would you motivate? Let me ask you this then: how would you motivate somebody to pull those weeds and get them to think that it's their idea?
I think based on my experience, I would offer a reward. I would offer an incentive for them to pull the weeds. I know when I was growing up, we had this big poster board on the refrigerator and all the chores that we had to do, and we would get $1 for every one that we did. Now, in the industry that I was in, we wouldn't give cash because cash doesn't drive long-term behavior change. It comes and it goes, and you can't really say, "Oh, I got this cash, but I got the Rolex for this, and I got the Weber Grill for doing this." So I would offer some type of incentive as to why the person should do it. And maybe it's not even about you're going to get a Weber Grill, for example, or you're going to get any points, but you're going to be part of creating a beautiful garden that you can sit in and enjoy. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I could, maybe I could see how that could, by giving them rewards, I could see how that would work better than the cash, because actually once you spend the cash, it's gone. And so then how do you sort of use that to reinforce the positive behaviors that you want when it's, somebody's, when you said Weber grill, I thought of my grill, and I'm thinking, what incentive? There's no incentive there whatsoever for me to be able to turn that Weber grill into something that's going to, motivate people to do better things.
Have you ever heard did you ever watch the show Seinfeld?
Off and on, yes.
Well, there was a certain show that where I worked in corporate, they got permission for us to use this part of the show as our sales pitch when we would talk to people. And I'll just try to recap it as quickly as I can. It's Elaine's birthday, and she meets with Jerry. She goes over to Jerry's, and Jerry has a birthday present for her. And he hands her a shoebox. And I don't believe it's wrapped. He just gives her the shoebox, it's closed, and she opens it up, and there's a stack of cash, and it has the band around it, like came from the bank. And she takes it out and she says, "You got me cash for my birthday? What is this? It's $130. It's cash. That's what you gave me. That's what your uncle gives you." And she puts the cash back in the box. Kramer comes over, and he's got something big, and it's wrapped in gift wrap. And she's like, "What is this? What is this?" And he said, "I remembered, it's your birthday, so I got you a present." So she rips off the paper, and it's a bench. And I don't think it was anywhere near as much as the $130. And she goes, "You got me the bench. You remembered I wanted the bench. I'm going to sit here and create this, that, and the other." And so the whole premise was that even though there was more cash than what that bench would have cost, she could have maybe bought 2 or 3 benches with the cash. The cash had no value because it was though he didn't take any time or put any effort into it. It's the same thing, at least this is what it was when I was working in that industry, as a gift card. I can give you a $50 gift card, American Express, and you go and use it for whatever. Maybe you get, I don't know, a quarter of a tank of gas, and you're not going to correlate the gas in the car to me giving you a birthday present. But if I gave you a $50 something, a tie, I don't know even how much ties are. They're hundreds, I think, but I don't know. I gave you something that you look at and you go, "Oh, Jacalyn gave me that." That's what creates a lasting memory and gets people to change their behavior.
That's interesting because, because the cash, it's out of sight, out of mind, I guess, right? So,
and it's easy. It's easy if I give you a gift card, I can go down to the local drugstore and they've got racks of gift cards. And I just go in, I go, "Oh yeah, okay, $50. I'm going to give it to Doug." That doesn't take a lot of thought. Now, is it nice because I did think of you? But if I went and got a gift, a special gift for you, and I gave it to you, and you looked at it and you said, "Wow, she gave me this red envelope and it has my name and whatever," you're going to remember I gave that to you.
This has opened up Pandora's box, and I guess I'm going to go there because I've gone away from doing gift cards to doing cash. And part of my rationale was, so if I'm giving family members, I would normally be looking at getting them a gift card to a certain restaurant or 1 or 2. But my argument with myself more than anything else was the fact that by buying a gift card from a certain restaurant, I've limited their choices versus me giving them $150 cash. Then they can choose where they want to spend that, and they can, choose where, like I said, choose where they want to spend it, and that way there it's more spontaneous for them. So they may decide they've been working all week long and they want to treat themselves. They can say, "Well, gee, we've got Doug or we've got Dad's cash. Why don't we go to this particular restaurant?" Which they wouldn't have been able to do so if I would have bought a gift card to a different restaurant. And so that's been kind of my way of rationalizing my wild decision.
How's it going over? What's the feedback you're getting?
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's working.
So it's working then.
Yeah.
What I was going to suggest is, what if you were to give the cash with the stipulation? I know what you're going to say, but okay, the cash with the stipulation that you'd like to be part of that dinner, but it won't come out of that amount of money, or part of a dinner. So in other words, you want to create an experience where you're all together.
Yeah, that's an option, certainly an option. When I look to the scenario that we've created with my two children, I want them to spend quality time with their significant others, because I had that robbed from me. So I want them to be able to go out as a couple and to be able to have that special meal. And if they have a special restaurant that they want to go, they can definitely go there. And if they want to spend more money, they can do that as well. I'm going to give you a little seed money to help you, number one, make the decision that that you should go out and spend the time with each other. And then that the door is always open for you to contribute more if you so wish.
That makes a lot of sense. And I guess I should put a caveat in it, because this is still under the topic of what we're talking about today. Motivation is that in the industry that I was in, the motivation was, if you are an employer, if you have employees and you want them to do certain things, you can throw cash at them. But for example, in the insurance industry, there's no cap on how much you can earn, but yet people pretty much tap out at a certain amount because they don't feel like working anymore, but yet they have unlimited ability. There's no ceiling for what it is they can produce, but yet there is. It's their own personal limitation. So we would design programs to help people be more productive. So if you think about a sales incentive trip, you're going to earn a trip to go to wherever based on your sales performance. For example, there's usually the A group, and the A group gets the trip every single time. Then there's the C group, they're hardly breathing, and eventually you should probably move them out the door. And then there's the B group, and the B group has the most ability to impact that company's productivity and their sales. But yet they look at it as, oh, the A players, they always get it. What chance do I have? So if you put a program together to drive behavior change of that middle 80, then you're going to see a lot of results to your bottom line. So that's how we would drive behavior change. And it doesn't involve cash, because you can give people more cash, but that doesn't mean they're going to be more productive. How do you get them to be loyal? How do you get them to be brand ambassadors?
That's interesting, because now you got me thinking back to when I left the police force and went into the private sector, of the whole idea of the performance bonus at the end of the fiscal year, and how it was people were hovering in the hallways and doorways and that, to try and hear any rumblings of how well the company had done over the past year, because that was going to dictate how much cash they were going to get. So whether it be as a bonus or whether it be added to their salary, but there was something monetarily related that was coming their way to be able to do that. And I don't know, I found that we got too caught up in the whole money story, and we sometimes lose sight of that. I had a conversation yesterday with one of my longtime mentors, and he said, we were having a conversation, and his words kind of came back to me, which was, well, Doug, when you started this whole journey, you always said it's not about the money. And so, you need to make sure that your focus is still on that same story, and that it isn't about the money.
So true. So true. And Doug, I've shared this with you as well as on this platform. I always made six figures, always, year after year after year after year after year. And it's hard to make money. It's hard to make a dollar. And I appreciate every dollar I earn. I appreciate every dollar I'm paid. When I was in corporate, I didn't feel that way, I have to say. I really didn't feel that way. I just felt like, oh, every 2 weeks I'm going to get a paycheck and I'm going to have the best health benefits. And now I see how it is as a business owner. And it's not easy. And I don't make what I used to make. And I don't even care because I'm so much happier now than I was before when I was in corporate. And again, I loved my work. I love the people I work with. Thank you. I'm very grateful to all of you. I didn't feel the least bit creative. And now every day I'm coming up with some kind of idea. So I went from I have no creative skills to wow, that was pretty interesting. How did I come up with that? So it's to me, it's not about the money. But until I left, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. And that's sometimes what we have to do is walk away from something that we have because there's something better just down the road. And, I look at it from the aspect of the whole money thing is if that's what's driving us, if that's what's motivating us, then from my perspective, anyhow, we've definitely got some things we need to have a conversation about because it's not always about the money. And, I think the sooner that we all can realize that, yes, we need to have a roof over our head. Yes, we need food to eat and we need to take care of the important people in our lives and all of those things. But it can't be about the money.
Definitely not. I'll just share a very quick story. I was speaking to someone recently and they wanted to do something and it was a minimal amount of money. And they started thinking about it and they said, I don't think I can afford it. And I said, well, do you want to do it? And they said, yeah, I really want to do it. And I said, well, what are you going to do so you can get the money? And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, put it to the universe, figure out how can you earn that money so that you can get it. And the person said, I'll think about it. And they came back to me. They said, you know what, you were right. I did that and I got the money. I was like, it is amazing. Now, if I said to you, Doug, I'm going to ask the universe for $50,000. Okay, that's a pretty big ask. I don't think I'm going to be sitting here and they're going to come to the door with that check. Who was that? The Publishers Clearinghouse or whatever.
Yep.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe our aspirations for asking the universe for things, sometimes maybe they're too small. Maybe it should be larger. What do you think?
I agree. I think they should be larger and we need to believe. That's the probably the most important thing is that, and I went through a lot of this where I did the motivation and I can't think of the words I'm looking for, but I went through the aspect of visualizing and thinking of, okay, I in my mailbox today, there's going to be a paycheck. And sometimes there was and sometimes there wasn't. But I got thinking, ooh, this is good. I could visualize and put the ask out there, that I wanted a paycheck in the mailbox. And lo and behold, there was one. So I think, the big thing for me is being able to believe. And if we don't believe, then, a lot of the time and effort that we put into getting that paycheck into the mailbox is just, it's not going to work.
I agree with you. And I think a topic for another show would be feeling worthy enough and deserve it enough to get the money. Because many times I've thought that people would say to me when I was in corporate, you have a master's degree, you have a doctorate. Why aren't you earning $1 million a year? And I thought, $1 million a year? Me? There's no way I could earn $1 million a year. But that's because I had self-limiting beliefs. I could, but I don't really put it out there. So I don't know. Is it important? And yet there are clubs, there are groups, there are coaches who work specifically with people who want to be millionaires. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. We missed our calling.
Because I won't be signing up because I don't care. But
Yeah.
it would be nice to be a millionaire. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. I don't know that we have the answer.
We're both speechless.
Yeah.
So, Doug, you've written another incredible book, and hopefully you have it there with you just to share with people.
Yeah, I've got the You Are Not Alone. There we go.
And we're talking a lot about corporate today, a lot about business, a lot about motivation. And so there's a lot of good gems in there in that book. What would you like to say to our audience as we close out today about motivation coming from unlikely places?
You know, the big thing, the takeaway from this is that the motivation that you need for you to be able to move forward will come from the most unusual places that you could ever think of. And what you need to be able to do is embrace that when that happens and turn that into, I think I can, to yes, I can, and to be able to make it happen. And if you can do that, you're going to be very pleased with the outcome that takes place.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to just add, I've been working very diligently on eliminating the word try or trying from my vocabulary, because to me, and I had this conversation with someone the other day, what does that mean? I'm trying. I'm either doing it, I'm in the process of doing it, I haven't done it yet. I don't know. I think try and trying are like the word fine. I don't know what fine means. How are you? I'm fine. I don't know. It gives me no information to do anything. I'm trying. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm a if and when person. So it's not if, it's when.
When. I like that. Or I haven't done that yet. I like that as well. So once again, more information, hope, and inspiration and education. And Doug, how can people reach out to you? And I know you have a lot going on. Do you have any space or bandwidth to take on some more people?
We talked about, it's not about the money. Well, in my particular case, it's not about turning people away. And I'm a firm believer that I'll never leave you on the island by yourself. And so if you need to chat or, talk about it, whatever, just reach out to me. And you can certainly do that through my website at TalentC.ca, www.talentc.ca. Or if you're more comfortable and you want to send an email, you can send it, and it's on the banner at the bottom, but it's doug.lawrence@TalentC, so the word talent with the letter C on the end.ca. And you have that option, and you also have through LinkedIn, because I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. So feel free to direct message me there, and we'll set up a time to chat.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Doug, for another brilliant show. I really appreciate you and your time. I know how busy you are helping so many people out there. So I look forward to seeing you again next week. And for those of you who are just joining our platform, please go over to our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV and Radio, and just click subscribe. We now have 37 shows that you can choose from to be a guest. And we welcome you to come back multiple times to share your story, because 40 minutes, let's face it, it's never enough time for somebody to get out there what it is they want to share. So Doug and I thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Doug.
Bye-bye. Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care.